Section 7. The Second World War, 1939 to 1945. Introduction. In this study session, you will explore the expansionist bid of Germany under Adolf Hitler and how the weakness of the League of Nations was capitalized on by the superpowers. The consequence of which was the might makes right, which was characterized of the superpowers as depicted by the various aggressions and annexations of smaller territories by the big nations. Learning outcomes. When you have studied this section, you should be able to identify the factors responsible for the Second World War, explain America's entry into the World War II, analyze Germany's last battle and the American bombing of Hiroshima. Factors responsible for the outbreak of the Second World War. Several factors were responsible for the outbreak of the Second World War in 1939. However, for the purpose of our studies, focus shall be on the outcome of the Treaty of Versailles, the failure of the League of Nations, the Japanese attack on Manchuria, the economic depression of the 1930s, and the rise of dictators and Adolf Hitler in Europe. Terms of Treaty of Versailles. The outcome of the Treaty of Versailles was not welcomed by Germans, who considered it a diktat, a dictated term. As it would be recalled, Germany was made to pay heavy reparations of £6,500,000,000, and she lost her colonies overseas, which were lucrative markets and sources of raw materials for her industrial growth. Failure of the League of Nations. Immediately after the First World War in 1918, the League of Nations was set up to prevent future outbreak of war by settling amicably disputes that might arise from the intense competitions and rivalries amongst the Europeans. Japanese attack on Manchuria. As it would be recalled, a veritable text on the weakness of the League of Nations was the Japanese attack on Manchuria, an integral part of China, of the League of Nations. Also, the failure of the League to deal with Italy also motivated Germans to denounce the Locarno Treaty of 1925 and to reoccupy the Rhineland militarily and unilaterally in 1936. China marched on Manchuria. Great Depression and World War II. The Great Economic Depression of the 1930s impacted negatively on countries like Germany, Italy, Russia, and Spain. For instance, in Germany, the heavy reparations to be paid by Germany was a big burden on the economy. The economic downturn led Germany to run into currency crisis, which was aggravated by the late 1920s and 1930s depressions. Also, it is important to note that it was economic hardship that led Japan to invade Manchuria with a view to settling part of her industrial problems as regards markets and investment. Similarly, the economic pressures and the poor standard of living aided the rise to power of authoritarians like Adolf Hitler and Benito Mussolini of Germany and Italy, respectively. Rise of dictators in Europe in the 1930s. The interwar years in Europe witnessed the emergence of dictators who later upset the balance of power and consequently led Europe to the Second World War. Apart from invading Abyssinia against the regulations of the League in the 1930s, Italy also annexed Albania, contrary to expectations of other European powers, particularly Britain and France. In Germany, Adolf Hitler emerged as the next dictator who was also not satisfied with the outcome of the Treaty of Versailles. He became autocratic and quickly repudiated the terms of the treaty. Hitler, a German dictator, repudiated the terms of Treaty of Versailles. America's entry into World War II. From the outset of the war, United States of America was neutral to the displeasure of Britain and France. However, the indifference of America to the war changed when the American Congress passed the Lend-Lease Act to give President F.D. Roosevelt the authority to supply weapons on a loan basis to Britain and allies fighting the Axis powers. Meanwhile, it is important to note that the USA tried to restrain Japan from her military adventures in the Pacific by taking several measures such as the cancellation of the trade treaty and the freezing of the Japanese assets in the USA. Germany's last battle and the American bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The battles were intense for Germany because Germany had to fight on many fronts. The British made their advance from Belgium to Germany from northwestern side. The Americans moved along the River Rhine into the very heartland of Germany. The refusal of Japan to surrender led to the American bombing of the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, respectively. The Russians reached the outskirts of Berlin in 1945. Hitler committed suicide and Germany surrendered to the Allies in May 1945. In spite of the defeat of Japan by Americans in February 1945, the Japanese refused to surrender. An ultimatum was given to the Japan to surrender, but the Japanese government, led by the military leaders, refused to do so. On August 6, 1945, the city of Hiroshima was destroyed by the Americans after dropping of an atomic bomb. On August 9, the American forces dropped another atom bomb on Nagasaki. As a result of the bombing of the two cities, the Japanese forces surrendered to the Americans on September 2, 1945. Study section summary. In this study session, you examine the factors that culminated in the outbreak of the Second World War. You also explore the entry of America into the war and the final battles of the war. This is the end of study section 7. Thanks for listening.